I want to talk about them together, but book 2 is second to book 1.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I have,
I figured you might have more feelings about book 2. This is one of the reasons why I wanted you to read book 2.
because I have feelings about book 2. Oh, I have feelings about book 2.
Welcome to My Hill to Die On, episode 54.
Everyone has things they're passionate about.
Things we want our friends to try and experience.
So we've convinced each other to try different things.
And we talk about these experiences to see if we can get just one more person
To join us on our hill to die on.
This is Editing Nate here. At the beginning of this episode, we decided to give you a quick look into what our members-only, Not My Hill podcasts are like. So we have included this sample of one that I had Ryan watch, but it wasn't a hill I would die on. For more 5 to 10 minute takes on various media, you can go to myhilltodieon.com/members for access to all our future member episodes. If you don't wish to hear spoilers for Encanto, please skip to the next chapter or ahead about 5 minutes. Enjoy this preview. So, Ryan, you watched Encanto?
Yes, I did watch Encanto. I was wondering what you were going to start with.
I figured I'd start with this.
I have things to talk about.
So we don't want to talk about Bruno.
No, we don't talk about Bruno.
I was glad you watched it because you need to know all the memes that are going around.
I know memes that I've never seen the media for all the time.
That's true. Well, and more than half of the memes that are out there, I don't know. So I'm just pleased I know this one.
Even so, I will say I watched the movie and I really enjoyed it. I'm a sucker for good music. We've talked about how I love musical theater and I love things like that. So for me, this movie hits all the right notes for me. So there are a couple of songs that I kept playing them over and over again, adding them into my music rotation while I work.
There are some good ones. I really do like the beats of Julieta's song, but I really like the song that Mirabel sings where time is kind of stopped. I don't like how they do the time stopped thing. Wait a minute, sparklers wouldn't look like that when time is stopped. But anyway, the song is good.
The song is very good. I will say Surface Pressure is a really good song. There are a couple of lines that really hit a little close on things that, people who tend to overpromise themselves can feel.
Mm-hmm.
One of the lines of the song that really stood out to me is she says, "I'm pretty sure I'm worthless if I can't be of service."
Yes.
And that line just really hits where I think there's a part of a lot of people who feel like so many relationships, so many different aspects of their life, if they have no utility for another person, that they're worthless to that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And that can really hit home.
She does grow beyond that, you think, by the end, though, right?
I think she grows somewhat beyond that. I think that there is a real part of her that's probably still lingering there. I think that that very idea can be real big for a lot of people in their relationships with other people. Lots of ways where they can feel like if they aren't of service, if there's no utility in them, like the other person isn't getting anything out of their relationship, they can feel worthless. And I think that that is something that just really stood out to me. And I think that that's a really powerful line.
And I think this is one of the problems that I have with this movie. Because I mentioned it to you, I think, well, either mentioned it to you or I mentioned it to one of our other coworkers right away. You might have heard it. But to me, I think the thing that I struggled with right after the first watching is that I expected Mirabel to be the main protagonist. And while I guess she maybe still is, she's one of the ones that has the least growth in the movie. So I felt by the end of the movie that I was like hoodwinked. Like, wait a minute, I thought I'm supposed to follow Mirabel's life here. But everybody else's seems to be growing more than she does.
But I feel like she is the instigator and cause of a lot of the other characters' growth.
That's true. It's true.
And so for her to be the character that she is not the character who is growing as much. She does have her arc, but she's not growing as much, whereas she is the instigator, the cause of everybody else's growth. And I feel like that's important for an ensemble cast like this, is this allows the audience to have an anchor. something that is steadfast in all these changes.
Well, and I guess I expected a story of her getting over the fact that she doesn't have powers, but she seems to pretty much be over it. I mean, yes, not completely, because she was singing that she's waiting for a miracle.
Mm.
But, she's mostly accepted the fact that she doesn't have one.
Yeah, and I think, for me, I don't think she ever got over that fact. I think she has accepted and is living with the fact. I don't think she's gotten over that fact, because I think the big thing for her was, while she didn't have one of those magic powers, the bigger issue with her for that was the fact that because of that, she felt like she wasn't really part of the family. And I think that was a bigger issue for her, was that she felt like because she didn't have something that made her special, that she wasn't really part of the family.
Which is too bad, because her father and uncle don't have powers either. But
yeah.
A milestone has passed in my household here. I sold my stroller.
You sold your stroller.
I sold my stroller, which doesn't sound like a milestone.
Well, no, it sounds like a milestone, because then that kind of is a signifier of you've almost accepted that that part of your life is done.
Right. Well, I mean, that part of my life has been done for a while, but, I mean, we haven't had diapers in many years now, which is a wonderful thing. So there are wonderful milestones that you pass along the way. But this stroller was pretty special to me. When we had our first child and we were getting ready to have our second child, we were like, we don't have a car in Japan, which is fine in Japan usually. But our first child still needed a stroller. So if we're going to have a second child, how are we going to push around two children? So I did lots of research. We weren't buying a car anytime soon. So I was like, well, great. I'm going to find the best quality double stroller I can find that is tiny, fits through the grocery store aisles here in Japan, which are kind of tight, especially because we were shopping in the grocery store by the station back then, which has very tight aisles.
That it does.
So, how are we going to fit through there? How are we going to fit through the train wickets? How are we going to do these things that we need to do? So I looked around, found a really nice, high-quality stroller company that has double strollers where the kids basically sit one on top of another. I mean, the second person is a little further back, but they're still kind of underneath the first rider. So it's better than, double long, because that will be too long to round the corners here.
Mm-hmm.
And it still has lots of space and everything. So I found this stroller company, and there was a showroom here in Tokyo for that in Roppongi Hills, which tells you that, yes, I found a high-quality stroller.
Yeah.
But it also means that Roppongi Hills is like the very high-class part of town. So we went down there to check it out, and yes, it was a gorgeous stroller. That's what we want. Didn't want to pay the Japanese price, though, that's for sure. That is for sure.
Well, that's because they know that they can probably get it there. Get somebody to buy it
Those
there.
people would pay it in a heartbeat, right? No problem for them, but nope, not for me. So after we checked it out, we're like, yep, that's the one we want. We'll have to buy it somewhere other than Japan, though. So I found a place in America where we could purchase it, and they would ship to American addresses for free. And we were approaching spring break, and we had discussed going to Saipan that spring break. So we're like, oh, maybe we'll go to Saipan. Can they ship it to Saipan for free? It's not contiguous 48, right? It's none of those things, but would that still fall under their agreement?
Technically, because it is,
It's an American territory, has an American address. Would it be okay? So I contacted them and said, hey, would you ship here for free? They're like, oh, yeah, we'll ship to Saipan for free. I'm like, oh, okay, good. That's a good deal. That saves us more than $100 on shipping. I forget what it was, but it was going to be a lot of money. I think it was going to be more than $100 for shipping and then some other amount for insurance or something like that. So I was like, this is going to be expensive in shipping. So good. Saipan counts. Great. Let's book our tickets to Saipan for our vacation, which we wanted to do anyway. We booked our tickets. This is working out great. And then the March 11 earthquake happened. When we were like, oh my goodness, school closed early, basically from March 11 all the way through the end of spring break, which was kind of nice. What we were able to do was bump our flight to Saipan up a little bit earlier. And I think we stayed like 1 or 2 days longer, but we were already like 4 days earlier than originally planned. So I was a bit scared that it wouldn't even arrive in time. I was like, oh my goodness, now we're leaving earlier too. But no, it all worked out. By the time we had arrived in Saipan, the stroller was already waiting for us, and it was great. We did find out right away that renting a car, as you do in Saipan or Guam, when we go to those places, it was a little bit annoying to set up the stroller, take down the stroller, pop it in the car, set up the stroller, take it down. Now, of course, when we returned to Japan, we weren't taking down the stroller and popping it into a car every time. So that problem wasn't going to be for us. So that was fine. Worked out, no problem. So then we got back to Japan, had our second child. And then for that next school year, pretty much, we were pushing both children to school in that stroller, which, I don't live terribly far away from school. I can probably walk it in 4 minutes if I'm pushing fast, maybe even a little bit faster. But with kids with tiny short legs, it takes a long time to walk to school. So to have the stroller was very helpful. And we would take 2 kids to daycare a lot of the time, so it was quite nice to have the second stroller. So yeah, we used it a lot. I bought all the accessories for it, rain covers. I have side packs for it, which we would go to Disney back then, and we'd have all the side packs crammed full of the baby supplies, the bottles, the powders, the diapers. Actually, one of the things I loved about going to Disney or just traveling when your kids are younger is you have so many diapers packed in the suitcase that by the time you're heading home, the suitcase is a lot emptied out. Look at all the space we got back. Oh yeah, the diapers went away. Packing for that. Blankets, jackets, all kinds of fun stuff. But we would go to Disney and stay in a hotel and take the bus to Disney in the morning from the hotel. And you'd watch this family of 3 with a, 13-year-old daughter walk off the bus with everybody's got these tiny 3 little backpacks. And I'm thinking, oh man, when is that time coming? When everybody's got their tiny little backpack instead of me with this big tank of a stroller that I'm pushing through Disneyland. But the tank of a stroller, well, yes, it's big. But it's wonderful to have a stroller that everybody can just take a rest in during the lines or going from ride to ride. It was very nice to have a stroller that kids could just, take a little rest in because they're tired of walking or waiting or something like that. So that was quite nice.
Well, are you now at the place where everybody can just bring small backpacks?
Probably. In our past few trips, I've taken one larger backpack. That's mostly stuffed with jackets because when the sun goes down and it gets cold, we want to pull out the jackets. So the backpack's not heavy at all. It's just puffy. So probably we could get to that point, but at the moment I'll carry everything. It's not a big deal because everything's just puffy anyway. We're very close to that point probably. I even pumped up the tires last weekend because I was like, I got to get ready to sell this thing. It's taking up too much space in the attic. And we're done. It's been sitting in the attic for 2 years. It's done. So I did take it out, pumped up the tires again because I deflated them for long-term storage. Pumped up the tires, and they held air for 2 days. I was like, yes. Oh, speaking of Disney, there was a trip we took to Disney Sea with this stroller, and the tire popped. Oh, my goodness. And it's like, I didn't have any spare tires on me. I still don't have any spare tires. And now I keep a pump in the stroller. So it's all Velcro. I sold it with that pump inside. It's installed right in the stroller. So you take the pump right out and you can pump up the tires again. And the tire popped, and it's like, and it was one of the rainy days in Disney Sea. This was one time where a typhoon all of a sudden passed over. Like, it wasn't in the forecast. We were expecting a sunny day, and then all of a sudden it's downpouring the whole time we're at Disney Sea, which was quite an interesting experience. And what do we do with this stroller that we're not going to be able to push around? Well, we hid it away in the Mermaid Lagoon area of Disney Sea, which is indoors. So we parked it there and basically left it there the whole day. And then I just went and picked it up again just before we were leaving. And then the next morning we stayed at the hotel, and the hotel we were staying at had a handyman store nearby. What was it? It was a D2, which is a home center store. So I went in there. I was like, they got to have a tire patch, something. They have to do something with tires here. So I went in, and they're like, no, we don't fix your tires. So it's like, oh, okay, fine. I was like, well, do you sell something that can fix? Do you have a new tube or anything? Like, no, we don't have any tubes. Oh, but we do have a tire patch kit. And I was like, fine, you have a tire patch kit. Great. Can I buy that? So I buy that, and then I spend the next 15 minutes in the bathroom patching the tire so that I can pump it up again. And at least I think they had a bicycle area, so I could pump up the tire there and test it. No, I couldn't. I had to pump it in the bathroom. So I must have had my own pump with me and pumped it in the bathroom so I could find the leak, which was quite interesting because the sink didn't have a stopper because it's a public bathroom. So I had to find the bubbles of the leak in a sink that didn't have a stopper. Oh, that was hard. Because I couldn't use any of their things. No, heaven forbid. I had to use the bathroom in the D2 to do this. Anyway, that was a pain. And then we finally got the tire patched, ran back to the hotel, popped it all in the stroller, and like, okay, let's go off to Disney now. I think then we were going to Disneyland the second day. It was like, so it's like, I spent an hour at D2 just trying to get a tire patched.
Hey, could have been worse.
Could have been worse. Well, in some ways, I was very pleased that I was able to get the whole thing solved in an hour. Sometimes in Japan, that's a pretty good deal. Yes, I didn't get any help from them. I think now they probably would. Most of these places have bike repair areas inside now. It must have been just the 6 months where they didn't or before they did, because now all these home centers have bike areas inside. In some ways, actually, I got it all solved in an hour, and I paid, like 500 yen for a patch kit? Really, I did pretty well, actually. That's probably the best success I could have had.
Yeah, you could have paid a whole lot more than 500 yen.
I could have. For them to patch a tire and install it in my stroller, probably would have paid like 2,000 yen. So 500 yen probably did pretty well, actually. So yeah, one time even with my stroller. I mean, the funny thing about this stroller is, I just have so many memories. My wife loved it too. We've traveled back and forth to Guam with it once or twice. I loved flying with it. When you'd leave Japan, Japanese, they would take amazing care of your stroller. They'd wrap it in a plastic bag and then put that whole plastic bag on the plane. And you know for a fact that would, just be nicely cared for, popped on the plane nicely, pulled off the plane nicely, no problems. When coming back from Guam one time, they're like, oh, you got a stroller? Let me just throw that on for you. And then I was like, oh, goodness, I'm fearing this. We arrived back from Guam, and the stroller had a big dent in it and a rip in the fabric. And I'm like, oh, my goodness, this stroller. Like, how can you guys damage my stroller? And you sign these waivers, right? You don't read the fine print, but on all those luggage tags, there's all waivers. Like, you're signing all your freedom away from damage of your stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I complained. And apparently they've dealt with people like me all the time, or at least me at that moment, because they're like, yes, we will take it back and we will repair it for you and send it back to you for free. And I'm like, thank you, because this is a very expensive stroller and you guys totally ruined it. So for sure they did. So I said, can I not do it right now? Because like we were in the middle of winter break still, and we would still use the stroller for winter break. And then when school starts again, at that point we could do without it during school time. We'd have to walk with our kids to school probably, or use our other single stroller, which is fine. We have a nice other single stroller. Not as nice, but I mean, it still works well. So they're like, yeah, you can wait until January. So I did find in my pictures, looking back through all my pictures of this stroller, I did find the packing slip from when I sent it to the airline. I'm taking a picture of the packing slip because I want to make sure this comes back to me. So sure enough, it did. All fixed. It was very nice. They must have spent a fortune fixing it, but hey, that was up to them.
Sorry, when you were talking about looking back on pictures of your stroller, I'm just imagining sitting at home, pulling out an album of just pictures of the stroller.
No.
Well, I'm just imagining that while like the background music from like after school specials would start to play.
No, nothing like that. I think the biggest thing was I was looking for a photo that we took very early on with both of our daughters in it. And I couldn't find that photo for a while, but I was looking through other photos of the stroller that came up as I was looking for that photo. So that's where I found the packing slip on it, because I was like, oh, I know what this packing slip is for. I did find that photo. It did take me longer than I expected. My daughters were younger than I thought when I took that photo, so that's why I didn't find it right away. It was a nice stroller, very nice. I loved all the features. I think I probably enjoyed it too much, but we sold it to one of our coworkers at school who, after thinking about it, she was the perfect one to buy it. She's got 2 kids right now. Her second child was just born. Perfect age to start sitting in the stroller. So she's going to really enjoy it for a long time, I think. I think we found a good home for it.
Good.
So I'm pretty pleased.
Well, I'm glad your very loved stroller is going to a home that will love it some more.
Yep, I think so. I have lots of memories with this stroller. That's why it's a bit sad that we're selling it. My kids have lots of memories. My kids were sad to see it go too. Are you going to tell us another sad game?
I'm not going to tell you another sad game. I'm actually going to tell you a happy game.
Okay.
Because lately, I have been playing Pokemon.
Okay. The new one for the Switch?
For the Switch, yes.
Which color did you get?
Actually, that's the interesting thing. So the newest one is one called Legends Arceus. And this is the first one in a long time that has not had an opposite color.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
Lately, they've had Sword and Shield about 2-3 years ago now. Then they did a remake of an older DS one with Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. But they just released, I want to say they released it like 2 months ago now, the game called Pokemon Legends Arceus. Now, the reason I bring this one up is because this is different from a lot of the other Pokemon games. They decided to try something new, and I really like it.
Okay.
So all the Pokemon games basically very similar. You're wandering around in the world, you go into the tall grass, and you are attacked, and you go into this screen where, oh no, now you're in a battle with a Pokemon. Well, in this one, you are wandering around in the open world, and you can go and sneak, and you can just randomly throw Pokeballs at Pokemon because they'll just show up in the world. You won't actually have to go into another screen to go into a battle or go into any sort of thing like that. You will just be in the open world. So it's a mix of an open world RPG and the regular Pokemon style of thing. And the story is actually not bad. Normally, Pokemon games are pretty light on story. Oh no, there's something going wrong with the world. Somebody's trying to do something really shady and awful. This one starts with your character somehow getting sent to a point in the past. Like, you have gotten transported into the past.
Years in the past.
Like, years into the past. When they're just starting to learn about and study Pokemon. Like, you are part of this first Pokedex writing extravaganza where you have people who are actually like handwriting notes for what will later be put into a Pokedex. It's based very much on like feudal Japan style houses and buildings and things like that. So it's just very interesting. All the Pokeballs are made out of wood in this game. And so it's just lots of really interesting things. I really like the style of action they changed this to. The trouble with a lot of the other Pokemon games is because they were basically all built very much the same, it got a little repetitive. And this is a very good change of pace. I like the action system a whole lot more. I like the way that you interact with the world a whole lot more. I'm hopeful that they will continue doing things in this style, in this stream, but I do know that at least according to the way that they've designed this as kind of an offshoot of the mainstream Pokemon games. And so I'm wondering if they're either going to continue this as an offshoot or if this is going to take more precedence into the main style of how it's being made. Mm-hmm. But I hope that they continue to make games at least in this style, because I think this is a good choice for them. This is a breakaway from their pattern that had unfortunately become very repetitive. And I think that this is a good move, and I really enjoy it.
A little Breath of the Wild artwork.
Yes, it is very Breath of the Wild style of exploration.
More than the other older games.
Way more than the older games. In fact, as you progress through the game, you can actually explore using Pokemon to help you explore, where the first one you get is the equivalent of getting a horse, but later you can get a couple of other Pokemon. One will help you climb up mountains. They have claws and they'll just climb up a mountain. One is a bird that you can just fly around the entire map, looking at the entire map, and then land where you want to land. So I think the exploration is so much more entertaining. I would say the way in which this game is designed feels like a mix of Breath of the Wild and Monster Hunter style. So for those people out there who have played games like Monster Hunter, I think that this is a melding and a mixing of those two things.
Interesting. I played more Disco Zoo.
You played more Disco Zoo. Again, I really think that you need to, diversify.
Well, we're talking, I played Disco Zoo for maybe a maximum of 2 hours in 2 months. I think I'm doing okay.
Yeah, I've played more video games today than you have in 2 months, apparently.
All right, Ryan, I think you found this one.
This drink?
I think so, right? No? Did I find it?
I think you found that one.
Well, maybe. This is Mitsuya Ume. It doesn't say cider.
It just says Mitsuya.
Yeah, Mitsuya is a cider-ish drink, so probably cider flavored. I'm wondering if it's going to be the same as the raspberry we had a little bit ago, where the taste was not as strong as Fanta, but still kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
Still kind of good strength.
That being said, I'm a little scared of this one.
Oh yeah, because ume can go a few different ways in Japan.
Uh-huh. Before we go fully into talking about the differences in ume, for those listeners out there who don't know what ume is a plum.
Yes, ume is Japanese for plum.
So, ume in Japan, many times, can be like a normal plum flavor that you're used to, like a little bit sour. Or it can be the condensed ume flavor that is in something like umeboshi, which is like all of that sourness condensed into a single speck so that it is an assault of sourness on all of your senses, which, quite frankly, I love.
I haven't gotten into that one too much. I've had it, and it overloads me, for sure.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the ume flavor, especially if you're getting onigiri in the morning. Ume is the flavor I will always go for. That's where it's at.
I might disagree with you on that, but that's okay.
What? You're going to disagree?
I go for the salmon onigiris, but hey, everyone can have their favorites.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, especially for me, especially for breakfast, getting a salmon rice ball for breakfast, a salmon onigiri for breakfast, just doesn't feel like a good breakfast to me. Because I like my breakfasts to be a little bit lighter.
Alrighty.
All right.
So yeah, I'm afraid.
Let's hope it's like the raspberry Mitsuya cider and not like the fruit punch Mitsuya cider.
Mm-hmm. It smells like the sweet Mitsuya.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not the umeboshi flavor. At least the smell doesn't seem like that, so we'll have to see.
All right, here we go.
Well, it's more on the sour end than expected, but
it tastes like a plum. It doesn't taste like umeboshi, like the pickled plum.
No.
But it tastes like a plum.
Mm-hmm.
Like a normal, like, purple plum.
A bit stronger, perhaps, than just eating a plum, but
depends on the ripeness of the plum that you buy.
I think you're going to like this more than me.
I like this. I like sour things, though. So this feels really nice to me. It's tart. It's refreshing. I like this.
Generally, I like sour things, but plum sour, I never... Like grapefruit, I'm okay with. Give me the sourest grapefruit you got.
Oh, I hate grapefruit. I loathe grapefruit.
You're going to like it more than me.
Oh, I'm definitely going to like. I'm waiting to hear what you're going to say.
I'm trying to decide between a 3 and a 4.
All right, you make your decision.
I think I'm going to go with a 3. I don't like it. It's too bad. I was kind of hopeful. I was really hoping I would have liked it.
Here's where we are going to differ very much.
Good. We're too much the same too often, I think. Oh, man.
I'm going to give it a 7.
Good for you. I'm glad you like it.
I was trying to decide between a 6 or a 7.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Rounding error gives it a 7 because you won't let me have a 6.5.
No, I won't let you have a 6.5. But you know what? That sounds about right. I mean, if you like it like you say you do. Not quite as good as raspberry because raspberry is one of your favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I think it's very good. I like it. It's nice and tart. I would probably give it about a 6.5 if you could let me have that on my scale, but since you're making me have whole numbers, I'm rounding to a 7.
Integers only. Man, I'm trying to like it. It's not working.
Hey.
Too bad.
I
was hopeful. Oh well. And then you brought these ones too.
Yes, I brought the Kit Kats today, so I found strawberry milk. Specifically strawberry milk. They have strawberry Kit Kats, but for some reason, they also have, in addition to strawberry Kit Kats, strawberry milk Kit Kats.
I think you're right. I think I did get the ume cider now that you mentioned it.
Yes, I do believe you got that because
Because I was thinking I'm not going to like it. That's why. Anyway. Yes, this strawberry milk Kit Kat looks interesting. It is a pale strawberry.
yeah. So here's what I'm anticipating in this. I'm anticipating this to taste exactly like Strawberry Quick.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Like strawberry Olay. Yeah, strawberry Olay kind of stuff.
Yeah, like Strawberry Olay. I am not anticipating this tasting like strawberries. I'm expecting Strawberry Olay, or you've gotten the Strawberry Hershey's syrup and you mix it into your milk. That sort of level of flavor.
So not real strawberry taste.
Oh, I'm anticipating full garbage junk strawberry taste.
Well, and this is not an adult sweetness Kit Kat.
Oh yeah, this is going to be an oppressive amount of sweetness in my mind.
Yeah, I think you're predicting well.
Oh, take a smell first.
Oh my.
Yeah.
It's sweet. It's very
It's
sweet.
sweet smelling. This is dangerous. All right, here we go.
It doesn't taste as sweet as it smelled.
It does taste like Strawberry Quick, though.
It does. It does. It does taste like that. Yeah, there's no getting around it. It does taste like strawberry quick. The aftertaste is a bit sweeter than the first taste.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because it's the chocolate. Whatever that pink stuff surrounding the wafer is. The pink stuff surrounding the wafer is super sweet. I think this is middle of the line.
Yeah. I'm trying to decide between a 4 and a 5.
I'm going to give it a 5 because I think it passes. I think I like the strawberry. It is not a bad fake strawberry taste. It is a decent fake strawberry taste. And fake strawberry tastes are one that I am generally speaking okay with. So yeah, I think I'm going to give it a 5. I think it's right down the middle. It's not amazing. I wouldn't call it a favorite. But I think it is not bad either.
Yeah, maybe like a 4.67.
I think that rounds up, Ryan.
Yeah, you won't let me have my decimals.
Nope.
Yeah, I'm going to round it to a 5. Because it's not summer mango to me.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so just a little glimpse behind the curtain here. I've had 2, and now I'm like, nah, I'm done. I'm going to stop myself there because, like, if I have any more, I think I will have so much sugar in my system, is what it will feel like.
Yeah. But it's not like melon in the fact that, like, I was actually kind of excited to eat the rest of the melon that I had after that episode. So maybe I even rated melon a little bit too low. But I'll eat these strawberry ones, but I'm not going to be excited to eat them.
Yeah. It's not a failure, but it's to the point where I'm like, I can have a few of these, like them, and table the rest for later.
Yep, I'm right along with you on that.
Because if I have more than a few, I think it just feels like too much sweetness. Yeah, that's where I'm landing.
Since our book today, at least the first book, has a lot to do with electricity, although the second book ends on a bit of electricity,
Yeah.
I figured let's talk about 2 electrical incidents in our lives. That's very wide open, but
Yeah, that's pretty wide open.
I wasn't expecting you to be, electrocuted like 5 times, so I figured just anything electrical. Any kind of electrical story you've got.
All right. So, I'll go first.
Yeah, I've got some good ones, so I'll let you go first, because yours are going to be boring, right, Ryan? No, I'm just kidding. I'm really kidding. Sorry.
Well, I'll let you decide for yourself.
Okay.
So, when I was a wee lad, I was oftentimes brought to my parents' workplace, and while my parents worked, I would be in the room to the side of my parents' office, but kind of be expected to entertain myself. There are lots of little things to do around the area, but I was old enough that I could entertain myself, and that was that. That being said, one day I got it into my head that I was going to try to teach myself how to pick locks. So I took a paperclip off my dad's desk and went around to a bunch of different locks trying to pick locks with a paperclip. I never really figured out how to do this well with a paperclip. I did later figure out how to do it pretty well with a credit card, but I digress. That's another story altogether.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't, admit to being able to pick locks that easily. But at one point during this entire extravaganza where I was trying to teach myself how to pick locks, I was at the age where I had a very vivid imagination. Okay, well, that really never stopped for me, but I digress. But I got it into my head at one point that maybe, just maybe, there was a secret door hidden behind the electrical outlet.
Oh, no.
You are seeing where this story is going.
Yeah, it's very, by paper clips, yes. Mm-hmm.
So, I had it in my head that, maybe I can get to this secret door, this secret hidden place that's hidden behind this electrical outlet. So I take the paperclip, I've straightened it out, I'm ready to go and try to pick the lock in the electrical outlet. And let's say I had a very shocking surprise.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that actually saved me, because as you can probably guess, when you have a metal thing and you are sticking it into an outlet, your body tenses up.
Mm-hmm. I know all too well. Mm-hmm.
So the thing that actually saved me in this entire thing was the fact that while this happened, the amount of energy that went through this paperclip was the level that it actually caused the paperclip to burn and break. And so the circuit broke when the paperclip broke. And apparently I had dropped the paperclip in this whole process, which my parents showed me the burn mark that was burnt into the couch that I was standing on while this was all happening. Because I was standing on a couch getting to the electrical outlet. So there was a couch at my parents' business place that had a paperclip burn in it for quite some time. All due to this fact that I was trying to find the hidden doors behind the electrical outlet.
How old were you?
I think I was 5.
Oh, man. And how far did you fly back?
I don't know, but I was rushed to the emergency room.
Oh.
So yeah, it's the age where you're old enough that you should know better, but I was young enough that I had convinced myself that there was some hidden world behind the electrical outlet. So I thought I would start off big.
With a good electrocution. Mm-hmm.
Good electrocution story.
I got one too. I have an electrocution story. But I was in high school. I was in 10th grade. And I was in charge of sound and lights. And we were setting up for one of the plays that was coming up. And I was like, this play could do really well if I could have one more light up in the light trees. So I found a light in the storage room that we'd never used before. And I said, let's try this one out. So I took the light out and brought it down to the backstage. There's the dimmer box. And I had an assistant at the time. And this is a fairly old dimmer box, but I plugged the light direct into the dimmer box. And then this dimmer box had like a handle on the side that you could hold. And when holding that handle, you could reach the breakers to turn on or off the circuits from that handle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they do that. Now that I think about that, that seems kind of silly. But anyway, that you could hold the handle and touch all the circuit. You would think that you'd want to separate this a little bit as I tell my story here. But anyway, you could. You could hold the handle and touch all the breakers. So I had the light in one hand, which was one of the other problems. And I could hold the handle and touch the breaker. So I had plugged the light in, held the handle, touched the breaker, and then I got stuck in that position after I had turned it on. And then I'm yelling to my assistant, turn it off, number 10, whatever was plugged in. Turn it off, right? And he thought I was kidding, of course. And it took him a half a second to react, and finally he shut it off. And I was like frozen. And then after I had let go, I was shaking all over. Very interesting experience. After that, they took me to the doctors, and apparently I didn't learn this until the next day. But my mom was like, my son is not working sound and lights until you've tested every single light, until you test all of them again to find out what happened and what's going on, right? So the play was happening like in a week, and the school luckily took her seriously, and they had taken all of the lights off of the ceiling and took them all down and tested them all out and found out I was there when they tested out the light that I had touched, and he found out that there was enough current to hold me there, but not enough voltage or anything to do any real damage. He, wisely put the light on a stand and then ran some wires in between that he could test without touching it himself. He was an electrician. He was wise about these things.
What?
But yeah, I was able to watch him with the little tester and say, yeah, this was a lot of current, but not a lot of voltage. You were fine. So I was like, ooh, good, thank you. But they had taken all the lights down off all the ceilings and tested all the lights. So there was no lights on the ceilings. And I think the director of the play was getting very nervous that they had taken all the lights down. Well, I didn't put them all up because I am not generally scared of heights. But, when you're in a room with a tall ceiling
Mm-hmm.
and you realize how close to the ceiling you are, that's when I get scared. So, yes, the ladder that climbed up to the lighting trees, hooked securely into the lighting tree, like that wasn't the problem. Like the ladder was not going to fall. But the fact that I'd get up to the ceiling and then realize I'm inches away from the ceiling and then look down, I'd get some good vertigo. So luckily my assistant, though, wasn't afraid at all, and he just scrambled up there, got all the lights. I did like having the ability to repoint all of the lights. Like, clean slate, let's start this again. So that was kind of nice. I don't think the director really liked it, but hey, I got all the lights were all repointed before the play, and we got it all set up very nicely. Very interesting experience, but I did check out fine again, too. I mean, again, enough current to hold me there, but not enough to do any damage. So that was good.
Yeah, no, mine was definitely enough current to kill me.
Yeah, it could have been. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good. It's good that paperclip broke.
Yeah.
The next school year, our whole auditorium got remodeled, so there was nobody touching lights after that. The remodelers put in another bank of lighting trees and stuff, so there was never ever a problem. You could light the whole stage from anywhere, not ever an issue. So quite nice.
Good.
I think that was planned separately, not because of my event. That was totally not connected to my incident. They just remodeled the whole place. Anyway.
Yeah. So the problem is,
you don't have too many other electrocution stories, right? Which is a good thing, Ryan. It's a good thing.
Well, yeah, I don't have any other electrocution stories that I can remember.
That you can remember? Wait a minute.
I might have another one that I just have forgotten about.
I hope not.
I hope not, too. When you suggested that we do stories about electricity, I had that first really great story that I really wanted to tell. But, in regards to all the other things regarding electricity, blackouts and all sorts of things like that, all of my other stories are pretty normal, pretty boring. All of my blackouts, they happened. If I was on the road, they went on to emergency lights, so everybody was stuck and driving very slowly. If I was at home, basically it was a lot of our food going bad, things like that. So really nothing too major, nothing too dramatic. So,
and then you moved to Japan where there's no blackouts ever.
Well, actually the first week I got here, all the power was on reserve.
Oh, and you got here because of after March 11?
When I arrived here for my original teaching job, it was a week after March 11, and everything was on energy conservation mode.
Yes, that was an interesting time.
It was.
The town where we live now, they had threatened a lot of rolling blackouts where they'd shut the power off for a few hours and then turn it back on again, just to make sure that the whole area had enough power. But it never happened to this town. And my guess is we have a power station that runs the train line in our town. So I think that had a lot to do with it.
Gotcha.
Because they would announce it over the loudspeaker saying, yeah, the power's shutting off for 2 hours, be prepared. Power's shutting off for 2 hours, be prepared. And then when the time would roll around, they'd say, never mind, power is going to stay on. So I think, there was a lot of fear that in 2011, I remember that there was tons of stuff being sold in stores to help reduce energy.
Yeah.
They would sell these cool mats. They'd sell a whole bunch of things to say, hey, don't use electricity.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, when I first got here, the really interesting thing was because I was teaching English through a independent organization, like basically a private business that got a couple of contracts for ESL teachers. Because I had arranged all that, most of the people who were in my group of becoming teachers that way dropped out because, it was right after 3/11.
Mm-hmm.
And because of all the chaos going on, getting in contact with the company I was working for was very hard during that time. So I arrived, had an address for the company that I was working for, and that was about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I arrived with 2 very large suitcases and my carry-on, and all I had was an address for this place. It was in Omiya, if I remember right. Yeah, I think it was in Omiya. And when I arrived, no way to contact them outside of going to that address. And all the blackouts meant that basically when I was going through the train stations, none of the escalators were working. And so...
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they shut off all the escalators and all the elevators.
So I was carrying all of these bags by hand upstairs through all of these transfers to get to Omiya from Narita.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first week in Japan after moving here.
Omiya's out in Saitama, right? Yeah, it's a distance.
Yeah, it's near-ish to the center of Tokyo, and then you just go a little bit north out of Tokyo into Saitama.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Omiya. I might be misremembering which station it was at. Oh well, but it was in that general area. That's about the closest I have to a weird blackout story.
That's a good one. It was very different in Japan then.
Yeah.
Well, I have a good blackout story.
Okay.
So, yeah, this didn't affect you. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page that described this, and actually I watched a video on YouTube that just came out on Friday about this, just a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was super surprised. I was like, whoa, this is what I wanted to talk about. But there was a large blackout that affected a lot of the northeast of America in 2003. Specifically, the 3 states that I was involved in, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And it happened on a Thursday in August. And this Thursday in August, I was working in New York City, and I had requested Friday off because I was going to my friend's wedding in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
So this blackout occurred at 3 p.m. in New York City. And through a bunch of things happened wrong, apparently, watching the video. Quite interesting. The biggest thing was, of course, it was heat of August, and air conditioners were spinning up, and there was lots of electricity demand in Ohio. This all started in Ohio.
Always blame Ohio.
Well, it's Ohio. And then, so a bunch of their lines shorted out, so much so that the flow of electricity around the lake basically reversed direction. Lake Erie? The flow of electricity basically reversed on many power lines. It was going one direction and then was all of a sudden going the other direction, which flicked a whole lot of relays off and said, there's an error. The electricity shouldn't be flowing in this direction. Because electricity all of a sudden was flowing in another direction, a whole bunch of safety things just turned off, which even though the power plants were I'm producing electricity just fine, everything just shut off, basically. And then it was a matter of resetting all the safeties in such a way that the power plants could get themselves turned back on again, or get the electricity flowing again, because the power plants themselves, they shut off, but only because the demand went away, not because of any problems. So anyway, this all happened in New York City, where I was, and in New Jersey, where my parents lived, and in Pennsylvania, where we wanted to go over the weekend. So in New York City, I was working downtown in the Time and Life building, which is I think it's a 50-something story building. Anyway, I was on floor 25 or 24. Anyway, I was on floor 24. And when the power goes out, it's not bad. Apparently they had some sushi that they had just ordered. So they were sharing it around. And for everybody that was there, they had another day of work, which was fine for them because they could just stay over or stay up all night or whatever and work again the next day. But I had the next day off. So I needed to get home. And there's a lot of things that block you from getting home when the power is out when you're in New York City. First off, one of the interesting things I found was I had a few files on the computer that I wanted to get off before I wanted to leave, and my computer had shut off. But because I was in the tech staff, I took my computer down to the server floor, plugged it into the battery backups down there, and got my files off the computer. That was quite nice. I'd only been on the server floor a few times because my level of clearance doesn't normally allow that. But in those times, the other tech guys were all hanging around, not able to do much, so they just helped me get on that floor. That was quite nice. Took my desktop down, right, which is a Power Mac G4 Silver Tower. Quite nice. Anyway, right, I lugged my desktop down the stairs until plugged it in, and then brought it back upstairs again. So that worked well. And then there was the discussion. Okay, I'm in New York City now. One of the discussions we had earlier on was you can't leave the building because if you leave the building, they won't let you back in because there's no security anymore. All of the security stuff is down. So your badge that beeps you in when you come in won't beep you in anymore, so they won't let you in. So I was like, okay, if I leave the building, I can't come back in the building. I have to be sure that I am okay leaving the building. The phones did work, or somebody's phones worked. I don't know. I was able to contact my parents somehow. I don't remember exactly how I was able to do that. I mean, this is 2003. This is before cell phones were popular anyway. So some people had them, some people didn't. Somehow I was able to contact my parents. And I don't even know how we knew this news too, but we had heard that the trains were operating under the river to New Jersey because New Jersey had restored power to many places already. Not everywhere, but many places. Enough so that the trains operating under the Hudson River could be powered by the New Jersey side and operate. So I was like, okay, I heard the trains were, again, I don't know how I knew that. That's like such rumors, right? And the day before the internet was like really popular, like somehow I learned this news. So I could leave the building, walk the 20 blocks to the train station, or 25 blocks to the train station, and then take the train across the river, hopefully. So all a big gamble. But I ended up doing that. Walking down 24 flights of stairs was a lot of flights of stairs too, so that was quite interesting. You just go down, 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 down. Had never done that before because you always take the super fast elevators. Got down, and New York City with no lights was quite an interesting place too. A lot of people were outside, just a lot of people hanging out. I mean, the streets are usually packed, but they're usually packed of people walking around or, doing their thing.
Going somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Going somewhere. Like everybody's moving. But in the blackout, like everybody was just like camped out on the sidewalks. So that was quite an interesting thing. Made my way down to Penn Station. The trains were operating, but the pattern of the PATH train under the Hudson is shaped like an H, right? And I'm on the northeast side of the H, and my train station in New Jersey that I usually go to is on the northwest side. And so there's some switches in place, but everything goes through the same tunnels there. So the trains operated, but the trains delivered us to the southwest side of the PATH station. And that's not where my parents were waiting for me. But they did say that they were having problems operating the switches because of the power outage. So that's why we went to the southwest side, not the northwest side. So they said, we'll just fix the switches and then we'll bring the train north to get to the right station. So they did that. All of this took like hours. Like I probably left the Time and Life building at like 6 and arrived at the right train station in New Jersey at like 9 p.m. And then I super luckily found my parents. Like I pulled out the station and there was nobody waiting there. And I found out that my parents said that the police had set up like a perimeter around the train station and nobody could get to it because they didn't want anybody walking the tracks to New York City or something like that. So anyway, there was a perimeter around the train station so that nobody could get in. And so I just came out of the station and just started walking down a random street. And that was the street my parents happened to be parked on. But like I could have walked in any direction and I happened to walk in the direction right where my parents were. Like, if I had come out of that station and didn't catch them right away, the job of finding them would have been unbelievable. Like without cell phones, they didn't have cell phones, I didn't have cell phones. How would we have found each other back then? I don't know. But anyway, I happened to find them on the first street that I tried. And then, then after that it was fine. But, I arrived home at like 10 p.m. or something like that evening because the diesel trains weren't running. I don't know why that didn't happen. I think it was because it was 10 p.m. No, the trains would run into the evening too, so I don't know why the diesel trains weren't running to take me up to where I would normally get my train station. But my parents picked me up in Hoboken, just on the other side of the river from New York City. So Anyway, yeah, that was quite an adventure, and a lot of things worked well that day. And I was able to get to my friend's wedding in Pennsylvania, in the middle of Pennsylvania, so that was a very happy thing. But man, a lot of things worked well that day. For me, in a time when almost nothing was working, a lot of things just happened to work well. But man, if anything went wrong there, I'd be walking back to the Time and Life building and just camping out till the next morning or something like that. Because where would I have stayed in New York City overnight? I can't even fathom that. Like, what would I have done if I couldn't have gotten on the PATH train? Or if I had gotten stuck in Jersey City on the southwest side of the train, like what would I have done? It's just.
Well, I'm just even thinking, if you hadn't found your parents on that last little bit, then you would have been stuck just trying to find somewhere to camp out in Hoboken.
Yeah, I could have spent hours wandering around Hoboken. I could have spent the night in Penn Station because I couldn't get across the tracks. Like, anywhere along the way, it could have gotten really bad, and it didn't.
Yep.
So, unbelievable. And then my friend had a great wedding. So, Ryan, I had you read not one book, but 2 books.
Yes, because having me read one book in preparation for this episode was not enough.
Right, it would have been too easy.
Yes.
So, nope, I had you read 2 books. Now, these are 2 young adult novels, and 2 in a series. And I figured that they're not necessarily together, nor are they the same. But I figured you'd have feelings about the second one, so I figured we should read that. The first one's very good, but the second one, I wanted to see what you thought about it too, so I had you read both.
Well, so the books that you had me read were The City of Ember and The People of Sparks.
Mm-hmm.
So, before we get into them, as always, I feel it is my duty, my responsibility, my obligation to say, if you haven't read these books, please turn off the podcast now, go read the books, and come back when you're ready for this discussion.
Especially the first one.
Especially the first one. If you haven't read the second one, it's fine.
Okay, wait a minute. All right, little hint dropping there. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Well, if you haven't read the second one, yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
We'll talk about how I feel about it later, though. But let me give a short summary for both of these books as best I can for those of you who have read them, and it's just been a very long time. So, The City of Ember is told through the eyes of Lena and Dune, who both, at the beginning of the book, are in their final day of school, the day in which they will be receiving their jobs. Lena is a young girl who wants nothing more than to become a messenger, a person who delivers letters and messages throughout the City of Ember. And Dune, he's a young boy who he's racked with worries. He's worried that Ember is struggling, and he has a lot of fears that it's going to end if nobody's able to fix the things that seem to be falling apart. So when Dune receives the job as a messenger, and Lena becomes a pipeworks laborer, they decide to trade those positions so that they can be happier in the positions that the other has. So days pass, and the town experiences more and more blackouts, and they become more frequent. And both the characters become more and more concerned. At this time, Lena's grandmother stumbles upon a box, and her baby sister ends up playing with the contents of the box, and also chewing most of those contents. Those contents were a single piece of paper. And Lena, after recovering it from her sister, tries to reconstruct it, as the type on it is very interesting. And she finds that it's instructions for something. So she speaks to several adults and shows it to them, and they all seem to dismiss it as something unimportant. The only person who seems to think it's important is Dune. And as they try to work together and decipher the meaning of it, they discover, in addition to some of the meaning, a great amount of citywide corruption. They try to expose this corruption, but nothing seems to initially happen. Later, they figure out that the instructions that were on the paper were leading them to a hidden room, a room where they find boats. And the instructions told them to go downriver. And as they were trying to prepare to go and make this trip, the mayor tries to arrest the two to cover up the embezzlement that he is participating and heavily involved with. But due to a lucky blackout timing, they both are able to escape and escape from capture. And as they do, they end up reaching the boat and taking it downriver. As they reach the end of the river, they climb up and realize their town has been built into a cave. And the instructions were instructions on how to reach the surface. At this time, they also find a journal, which reveals that some disaster had led to a bunch of people needing to take shelter in a cave underneath the surface to avoid all humanity being wiped out many years ago due to some disaster. This is what led to the founding of the city of Ember, but it was only designed to last so long, and they reached the surface, found an opening right above the city, and dropped a note instructing the rest of the town how to get out so that the entire population could potentially be saved.
Mm-hmm.
The people of Sparks picks up right after the city of Ember. The people do escape from the cave, and many, unfortunately, die in the panic, including the mayor, who had been trying to escape with some of his ill-gotten goods and his cronies. Those who were left after everything tried to find a place, and eventually they came upon the city of Sparks, a town that had just started to find its feet, just started to prosper. Initially, they had been welcomed with the condition that they would be leaving in 6 months. During those 6 months, they were supposed to learn how to survive, and then they would take off and build their own town. During this time, Dune works hard, but is unfortunately accused of destroying 2 crates of tomatoes. And then the whole town seems to begin to doubt itself, doubt each other. The people from Ember know that Dune wouldn't have done that. But the people from the city of Sparks, who had already started to become impatient with the visitors, as they felt like they were giving up food meant for their own stores, meant for their own people, meant for their own families, and giving it to these outsiders. The people of the village didn't trust Dune. And the troubles seemed to just get worse, the 2 groups increasingly becoming more and more at each other's throats. And all the while, Lena had gone off to check out a nearby city in hopes that it might be a place where the people from Ember could maybe settle and find a place, because she was hoping that it'd be just like the city that she used to dream of. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Instead, the city was a destroyed ruin. Destroyed by fighting and wars. And when she eventually returned to the city of Sparks, she was so moved by the fear of this war that had caused this all to happen that she never wanted to see anything like that happen again. And when the sparks of war seemed to ignite, pun totally intended,
Mm-hmm.
and instead a real fire ended up nearly destroying the town, she and Dune decided that they would save this town their own way. And in the aftermath of saving the town, getting involved, and treating everyone with kindness rather than pushing closer and closer to fighting, it all came out that this fighting had been instigated by a few people, guided by fear and by pride. And a decision was made that the people from the city of Ember would be officially made part of the town of the city of Sparks.
So, Ryan.
Yeah.
What do you think of these books?
Okay. So, for the first book,
Mm-hmm.
there were a couple of times where I felt like, I've read this book before, haven't I? Oh, wait, no, that was called The Giver.
You mean the dystopian where nobody believes the kids? Mm-hmm.
The dystopian world where nobody believes the kids, and then at the end of the book, the kid has to save the world by taking a small infant with them and going off into the wilderness.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, very similar themes, very similar style of writing, very similar plot to The Giver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think this is different.
Oh, it's different, but there are a lot of similarities.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I'd agree with that statement. I think I like the setup of this one better, except in the fact that The Giver had one amazing setup point where
Yeah.
the vision setup point, which you don't realize till halfway through, right?
Yeah, I will say that setting-wise, I like this setting better. This setting was far more believable for me
As a dystopian future.
as a dystopian future, whereas The Giver was good and it had a lot of more fantastical elements than a realistic potential dystopian future.
Right. I mean, in some ways, The Giver was so far out in the future that it's like, there's a lot of things that have to get us here.
Yeah.
Whereas the city of Ember is like, nah, we could be here next year. Well, I guess
Next week.
we next week. Oh my goodness. We could see how we could reach this point. I guess this is 250 years in the future, I guess, but still.
Yeah. So there's that. I'm going to go through my initial feelings real quick about both books.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my initial feeling there. My initial feeling for book 2 was it felt like some of the character development that had happened in book 1 was undone for book 2.
Yeah.
And then it felt like a lot of the problems that were happening were because a lot of people were taking monumental things at the word of 10 and 11-year-olds.
Yeah. Where there was no one in the town stood up. To me, in both books, the thing that drives me up the wall is, why is Dune's dad so timid? Can't he stand up for anything? I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He is very much a very passive man.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that criticism in The People of Sparks. Of the escapees, absolutely no one would be a leader except this tick guy.
Yeah, and he's their age, so he's 12.
Mm-hmm.
Because clearly, don't you know, these people who have been doing various things around town, running businesses, running shops, running greenhouses, which, by the way...
Loved how they were tin cans. That was the greatest, wasn't it? The greenhouses weren't clear.
No, it's more along the lines of, my bigger problem was the fact that one of the big plot points on why they needed to do all this stuff was they don't know how to grow things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They've been growing things for 200 years. They've had greenhouses.
Yeah, I can see that criticism.
That's another thing. But yeah, it's the fact that like everybody is taking this 12-year-old at his word. And one of the big plot points is this 12-year-old, what was his name again? I cannot. Tick? Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like Tick. But the fact that he's instigating all of these problems, that's one of the big plot points. After some initial conflicts that had risen about by some misunderstandings, he kept trying to fan the flames. Again, first of all, dumb. What was his end goal?
He's 12, Ryan.
I know.
So the question I have is, did this book make you angry? The second book.
The second book made me angry.
Yeah, but I think that's the point, right? I think that's the point of this second book, is to make us angry, right?
I don't know. I felt like they were trying to go for a hopeful thing, but at the end I was just like, if it wasn't for the fact that I needed to read this for this podcast, I would have stopped halfway through.
Okay.
Because I was just like, I am not enjoying this. I am getting angry. And it's because nobody is talking to each other, and the only people who seem to be able to talk to each other or able to like act in any way are like, I know it's written for 13, 14-year-olds. And therefore the only people who can seriously somehow act are 13 and 14-year-olds.
Yeah. That is a perfectly fine criticism, because it's like 400 people came out, and let's assume half of them are kids and half of them are adults. None of the 200 adults could be a leader. None of them.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah, like you said, they all run shops and stuff. They know how to lead. Some of them. Come on. But yeah, yep. I felt like, yeah, Dune and Lena definitely took a back seat in the second book. But like, I didn't think of it before, but I do see what you're saying by some of their character development kind of got unwound. Lena held on to her curiosity. And same with Dune too, but
their proactiveness, a lot of their proactiveness, a lot of their being willing to talk to people. Like, seriously, 90% of the problems in the people of Sparks is the fact that nobody was listening to each other.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. If anybody took half a moment to genuinely have a conversation and listen to each other, everything would have been solved.
And actually, I was thinking at the end, too, wouldn't it have been nice if they had allowed somebody from Ember to be on their little council? A little bit of representation never hurt anything.
Yeah. I was actually expecting them to be like, okay, they were going to have a couple of representatives as part of the council or have an additional council, like two houses working together, kind of bicameral legislation kind of body.
you have grand plans.
No, I don't have grand plans because I know how bicameral systems can end up basically hamstringing systems too.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to the City of Ember, because that is definitely the more fun book.
Yes.
I just thought, I mean, to me, the People of Sparks continues the story interestingly in such a way that can make you mad. And the next two books, there are two more books, and book three goes back and tells the origin of the City of Ember, and book 4 tells yet another continuation of the People of Sparks and the City of Ember. And they're decent, but the first one is definitely the best. And then if you didn't like the second one, I don't think you're going to like the next two. But anyway.
Yeah, well, again, my problem with the second one, to sum up, is the fact that it felt like they took all the positive growth that had happened in book 1 and they took a step back from it.
Mm-hmm.
They got into problems because nobody would talk to each other, and a bunch of people decided that it was more fun to be manipulative little fill in your own colorful adjective there.
I kind of hope that the storyline is something that some kids can still learn from, but still.
Yeah.
Especially in this day and age.
I read that and I just go, fighting is bad, war is bad, let's do everything we can to find peace. Great. That's a good thing to do. In fact, it's something that I wish certain world leaders would read more on when they were young.
Mm-hmm. But it does involve talking.
Oh.
And listening. And listening. And listening and listening and listening.
Talking and listening. Why would you ever talk and listen to other people?
You know. Because, anyway, never mind.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to the City of Ember. I did think it funny to realize that the greenhouses were not clear. That was a funny, shocking. I mean, of the twists, there was not that many of them. But learning that the greenhouses were just tin cans turned on their side, it's like, oh, yeah. If there's no sun, then there's no reason to make clear greenhouses. Then why do you call them greenhouses? I guess because the green plants are growing in them. But still, it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
I just laughed at that. I think one of the things that definitely drew me to this book was the sheer amount of engineering that had to go into this city. Just getting everything in place for 200 years, the storerooms. You know, I mean, they talk about multiple levels. So how deep is this thing? You know, even the ground level of Ember was definitely deep, which you learn at the end. But, you know, as you're realizing this, it's like, wow, there's things underneath this like nothing else.
Yeah, the way the city was designed is really interesting, really cool.
Mm-hmm. It is quite cool how, I mean, I don't think it would really work to have all the pipes on that at the bottom level, but still, anyway, it was a neat thing for the plot at least. I think one of the interesting things, the plot corruption angle of the government moves things along in the plot pretty well, I think. You know, it's definitely driving the tension.
It drives the tension, but honestly, if it hadn't happened, the end result of them all escaping would have still happened.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It makes it happen sooner, right? It makes it happen, oh my goodness, we have to do this now, right?
It escalates.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, they only discover that there was corruption in the government fully by accident because they had misunderstood the instructions, and so they went in the wrong door.
Right. They were going in their storehouse door as opposed to where the boats are kept.
Yeah.
That's true. I didn't think of that either.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, if they had gotten the paper whole as it was meant to be, they would have never stumbled upon the corruption. They would have just gone out the door and then, like, probably what would have happened is then they would have reported it to the mayor and he would have snuck off on his own.
Yeah.
All the goods would have been gone, the mayor would have been gone, and all his cronies would have been gone.
Speaking back to the world building,
Mhm.
I did keep referring to the map. There was a map, well, in the paper book, which I did find online.
I was working through the map in my head.
Yeah, well, which is great because, I mean, the fact that the author thought through where all these places are,
Mm-hmm.
there was thought put into that. That's not just like, she went over to that corner, went over to that corner. I mean,
It was a well-designed city.
yeah. I mean, and not that large. I mean, really. I mean, it held 400 people-ish. So I do wonder how they did handle birth control so that they didn't overpopulate, but that's interesting. There didn't seem too many rules on that, but maybe the kids don't know about the rules.
Well, also, you think about the fact that given that they apparently had a couple of like coughing sicknesses wipe out the population over and over again.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, and then I do have a note here where it's I compared it to Ender's Game. It's the same thing as Ender's Game, where the adults are just they just are stupid. They don't know what's going on. They can't do anything. Only the kids are the ones that have all the power. Somehow the kids have to do it.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've read the Enders series, but
I'm wondering if they needed the kid to have the creativity to run the war. It's not just that the adults were stupid. The adults didn't quite have the creativity to do what they wanted.
also I think a lot of times it felt like, depending on which adult you're talking about, some of the adults couldn't do what they knew was right or knew what they needed to do because of like basically regulations.
Political hangups and things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that we're not here to talk about Ender.
No, we'll talk about that one later, another time perhaps. But I think the biggest thing that I think was fun about The City of Ember was that it was a mystery book, right?
Yeah.
People of Sparks was definitely not a mystery book. But The City of Ember was, where are they going to go next? How are they going to solve this problem? There was a lot of mystery plot moving things along pretty nicely that you're drawn in.
Where you're like, okay, as they're looking at this document, I don't know about you, but I was already trying to break down a lot of the words before they ever reached them.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I figured out egress way before they did.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. The first time I read this book, I did read the book. I mean, this time I listened to the audiobook, but the first time I did read it. So it was easier to see some of them when you're actually reading the book as opposed to the person just spelling it out to us in the audiobook version.
Yeah, I will say, listening to the book when they're spelling all these out for you, that probably did delay my figuring out a lot of this.
And you probably could have. I mean, because when they're talking about the little chunks of paper, it's a little bit easier to see it. For us, especially because we kind of, especially if you realize it's instructions for egress right away, then you're realizing what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we have knowledge of what a boat is and candles, that helps a lot too.
I will say that in listening to this book too, some of the choices for how they were reading some of the parts were a bit over the top for me. By that, there are two characters I think of.
The sleazy mayor.
The sleazy mayor, who the reader gasped every like 3 words.
Mm-hmm.
It was a interesting choice. I thought it gave a very vivid visual for the mayor, especially for a person who likes to listen to things at a faster clip than that. It felt way too languid for what I wanted to listen to.
Mm-hmm. And
the other one that bothered me was in The People of Sparks. The little boy who was like the...
Torin. Mm-hmm.
Torin. He was so whiny, I just could not... I know the reader was doing it very well to express the type of character he was, and it was right as a character choice. It was good, but it also made me so angry.
Well, again, talking about people who don't listen. I mean, like, even the aunt doesn't listen to her nephew.
Yeah.
She doesn't listen to Torin.
Mm-hmm. And really, seriously, if anybody gave him a briefest moment of attention, it would have solved all the problems in that city.
Yeah.
Like, just give the stinking 10-year-old a moment of attention, and you'll be fine.
Oh, how quickly did you realize that the song was about Ember?
I had my guesses. I don't think
Mm-mm.
I had it confirmed yet.
Well, that's right, because they don't give us the whole song until they meet that other rumor, right?
Yeah. All we know is there's a song
Right.
until the new guy comes in.
Right, and then repeats the song. And it's like, oh my goodness, this is Ember. I mean, as soon as he says the song, it's so clear.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's right.
But we were talking about something else first.
Let's get back to why we like the city of Ember. And
Sorry, I keep bringing up some complaints because, again, I finished book 2 about 3 hours ago.
I don't think I like the people of Sparks as much. And again, like you're saying, mostly because people just don't talk. They just need to be talking. That same argument can happen in the city of Ember too, but not as much.
Not as much, especially because in the people of Sparks, you have grown adults acting like children.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have the guy who's basically verbally and physically abusing Dune because he's not working fast enough because they think that he ruined the tomatoes. And it's all because nobody just talks to Dune. Even though if they've worked with Dune for 3 months, they probably know the type of person he is. Anyway, but...
Well, only the one boy from the family.
Yeah.
But yeah, the city of Ember has the mystery. It has a bit more tension. Well, I mean, I'd say People of Sparks has tension too, but I mean, it has more tension that's driving you into the book, I guess.
Yeah, it has tension that makes you want to turn the pages, want to find out, okay, how are they going to survive? You know they're going to survive, but how are they going to survive? What's going to be the solution? How do they discover why their world is like this? These are all questions that you're pushed into wanting to know more.
Yeah, are they going to get out before everything breaks down?
Yeah, because there is a real part of you that's like, maybe the lights are going to go out fully and they're going to have to do this in the dark.
Mm-hmm. Which would be very scary.
Yeah, especially because all you have to do is fall into the river and then game over.
I know, right? Yeah, about the movie. I do have the movie, and it is not as good in any way. If anything, the only good thing about it is that it gives you a few faces to put to some of the names.
Is this the one where it's Bill Murray as the mayor?
Yeah, Bill Murray as the mayor, which pushed the corruption plot to too central of a stage. While yes, it happens in the book, it's not really the point. It's just something that's happening around. It only comes to the point when they're being chased around the school. You know, like that's the only point of the corruption plot. Everything after that's not a big deal.
There's the subtext that there is corruption or that the mayor's not a good person throughout the entire book, but you're just like, he's not a good person. Yeah, he's probably taking advantage of people, but you know what? It's not a direct issue for our main characters until they try to do something right, like by fixing it.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it was too much. But I think the movie also made some missteps in trying to add more unnecessary tension. Like the way that they escape in the movie is you put a boat down in the river, but then they have to lower the turbine so that the boat can fit through. So the whole, like, if Lena and Dune escape, that means the turbine has stopped and has been lowered into the river further so that the boat can go over the turbine and out the hole. So that means that half the power is not being generated because of the two turbines that they show you in the movie. One is stopped now. So, like, people will, like, know. Like, it's more damaging to the city to leave because one half of the power generation is shut off so that the boat can escape. So there's too much. It's too much. Why does there have to be like scariness in getting Lena and Dune to escape? There was enough scariness with a rushing river. Why does it have to have this whole turbine thingy? And another thing they do is they make it pretty clear, especially in the second book, that the catastrophe that drove them underground was more of a bacterial infection, like some kind of disease, right? Biological weapons, I guess, right?
It could have been biological weapons or potentially like war in general kind of things.
Yeah, potentially war in general, but not necessarily nuclear holocaust.
Yeah. Especially because how is it nuclear holocaust if there's still people on the surface.
Right. If there's still survivors, right? So the book kind of makes it clear that it's not nuclear holocaust, but the movie decides that they want to bring in genetically altered animals that have come from the surface. So one of the things that Dune does in the early parts of the movie is help a bee whose wingspan is as tall as he is. He helps patch his wing and then helps that bee fly off again. And the way that the mayor gets his comeuppance in the movie is getting eaten by a humongous mole that was tearing through the storerooms. So the mole basically consumes that secret room that's in the book. The mole basically consumes that secret room with the mayor in it. Why? Why did we have to have it? Why did we have to have that? Like, what did that do?
I mean, him falling in the river is plenty.
I know exactly, but I guess maybe they didn't want to go that far because the movie ends with Lena and Dune on the surface also, so they didn't want to go as far as getting the others. Anyway, I don't know. I was just bothered by that.
Seriously, all you have to do is you just retime things a little bit. If you want the mayor to die the same way, to basically lose the same way, you have him find out that they're escaping this way, have him trying to chase after them, and in his
haste fall over.
Or rather than having him chase after them, he finds out about this and tries to escape with all of his stuff, and you can just have him loading the boat over and over again, not realize that he is causing the boat to sink because he's put too much weight in it or something.
Right, and then jumps in or something like that. You know, I mean, yeah, there would have been plenty of other ways, but a big mole and the big bee just didn't need it. It didn't add, I didn't think.
But everybody loves bees.
Yeah, they're nice. Even a big bee is like, well, what about its stinger? Like, anyway. Well, then here's the unrealistic part, right? If the people up top survived this biological warfare, the city of Ember people weren't exposed to it at all. So therefore, when they got in contact, all the city of Ember people would have gotten sick.
Oh, yeah. There should have been a whole lot of disease because of a lack of immunity. Yeah.
They needed to be weeded out, some of the survival of the fittest things. Anyway, never mind. That's,
But really, now we're
nitpicking too much.
Are we? I wouldn't say too much.
The one thing I liked about the movie was that the movie put in a little bit of history between Lena's dad and Dune's dad. That they were friends early on, that they were guys who were they had built a digging machine to escape the city, to go into the unknown regions. I liked that there was history there, that there was a friendship. That was a nice touch that the movie added that wasn't in the book, but didn't add much because they added a whole lot of other things I think they didn't need to add. And I don't think the movie necessarily would have been better without them, but it just veered far off, and I'm not sure I liked that of it. But maybe it's because I've read the source material. So, if you hadn't read the source material, did you think those things add to it? Maybe. I can't ever picture what it would be like to see the movie without having read the source material.
Gotcha.
To me, the movie added some nice faces to some of the characters, because I think the actors did a very good job of representing them. I just think that, the movie just didn't do as much as the book did. And the book had a lot more pages to do it, so, oh well.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen it, so I can't really make a judgment on it.
Yeah. The book's just able to spend more time on more of the fun stuff, right? The movie skips right over the trip down the river. Like, that's like a whole chapter in the book. But it's like, yep, they escape out of the thing, and then 5 seconds later, maybe with a quick montage, they're at the docking station already, and they're working their way up. The movie has to do a whole lot more of showing, not telling, but you get a lot more of the inner feeling through the book, of the fear of going through the river, and then the amazement of coming up on top, and how do you live up on top.
I get you.
So anyway, City of Ember, good book, huh?
Yeah, I will say that I liked City of Ember. I enjoyed it. I liked the mystery. I liked how they were solving the problems. I think I probably would have liked it better if I read it as the age in which it's designed to be read by.
Mm-hmm.
I probably would have liked it better if I had read it then, but it was a good book. Now, People of Sparks. I think that even if I had read it when I was the right age, I would have still gotten very annoyed. For me, the people of Sparks really felt like so much of it was just, why are these people being comically evil?
Well, I mean, one of the interesting things to me is this People of Sparks book plays out in real life all the time, apparently. We've seen it in Brexit. We've seen it in all these other things. It's like, oh my goodness, can't we talk and listen, or listen and talk?
You mean, why can't two people groups who have to share the same area, why aren't they willing to talk about how they can share resources and work better together? You know, like, why is it that this group that might be, you know what, rather than calling it Embers and Sparks, let's represent them with animals. Like, why can't an elephant and a donkey just get together?
Yeah, perhaps elephant and donkey. Yeah, that's the question. Were you getting angry because of too many similarities, or are you getting angry just because of the story itself?
I was getting angry because of the story itself.
All right, I guess so.
Because I felt like I do realize that what you're getting at, I get what you're getting at, that we're seeing this played out because, like, every time we see people who are increasingly nationalistic or increasingly like us versus them, that this is played out in front of us. But it felt like, even though we see it played out in front of us in that aspect, I think the problem I had with this book was the fact that so many of the things were caused by really dumb things.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the disagreements that happen on a world stage tend to be,
Really dumb things.
well, yeah.
You know, I think the problem is, yeah, it hits very close to home. And I think a lot of people need to learn this. I don't think they're going to learn it from the People of Sparks, which is too bad.
Oh, we're definitely not going to learn it from the people of Sparks.
I almost wish it was wrapped in another analogy. The underlying message is good. I almost wish it was wrapped in another analogy somehow, or done with different characters or some other way, as opposed to being the second book in the City of Ember.
Yeah, I will be fair and say I felt like the City of Ember was a good conclusion to the story. You didn't need to continue it. It seemed too much like, no, I like these people that I've developed, I'm going to continue in this story. When it didn't feel necessary. It felt like their story had been concluded. Because again, they didn't really solve the issue.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You know, in some ways, I was kind of hoping too that when the mayor was having her speech at the end, she was going to announce the name of the new town, and it was going to somehow be something better than Ember and Sparks. Like, you got a great fire/electricity motif going on here. Come up with one more thing and name the city that. There was a few things that I thought not the mayor, but the head councilwoman could have done slightly differently.
Yeah.
And encouraged a little bit more cooperation. We're nitpicking, but
yeah,
I think the analogy is good for the book, but I don't think it's going to be good for what it takes people to actually learn to listen.
Well, I mean, I've talked about this before, but a lot of the problems with those situations are the fact that it becomes an us versus them mentality. A person isn't willing to listen or talk to anybody in the other group. And I think it was comically exaggerated here because usually being unwilling to listen to the other group is something that becomes entrenched after years of certain like mentalities and years of being raised certain ways or listening to the same certain type of information. And yet this was like, seriously, a couple of rumors and then everybody in town became entrenched into this us versus them thinking. It just seemed comically exaggerated. Like, again, you look at some of the characters, all these things come about because you're not willing to deal with the person as an individual, as a person. And so I look at these books and I see, oh, this person is dealing with this person as an individual, as a person. And then suddenly this rumor comes about and oh no, now I'm suddenly going to ignore everything I know about them as a human being, as a person. Because this rumor has come about, and that changes my entire perspective of how I'm going to look at this person. That seems ridiculous. But, I know, yeah, it can be realistic because of certain foolish ways that are represented in our own world.
So, Ryan, what do you have for me next week?
Well, I decided that I wanted to have you go and read another fun book. And so I thought, I'll have you go back and read some Terry Pratchett. So this time, rather than continuing to follow the character of Death, I thought, let's talk about the Night Watch. So I wanted to have you read Guards, which is the first book in the Discworld series that follows the Night Watch, or the City Watch for Ankh-Morpork. Which I think is a fantastic series. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do.
I am looking forward to reading it.
All right.
I hope it has as much humor as Mort. But the book was called Mort, wasn't it?
Yeah, the book was called Mort.
The book and the character is called Mort. So yes, I hope it has as much humor as Mort does. So I am looking forward to it.
Good. I hope you enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to talking more about it. I'm personally going to reread it before our next discussion. We do hope that you found something nice about this hill that we were willing to die on, and we appreciate all of our listeners coming along on this journey with us. And if you ever thought to yourself, hey, I really like these guys and wish that I could help keep them doing what they're doing, and wish there was some way I could support them, know that you can. Visit myhilldadieon.com/members for more details. But to give you a bit of a glance into what being a member means. Being a member allows you to have access to the Not My Hill Members Only podcast, where we talk about things that they're probably somebody else's hill to die on. They're not our hill to die on. I mean, there are things about them that are lovely, but they're not for us. We have strong feelings about them nonetheless. So in addition to having access to the Not My Hill Members Only podcast, you can also suggest ideas for the Members Suggestion podcast, where you can suggest a topic for us, and we will read or watch or partake of that media and tell all of our listeners what we thought of the member-suggested topic. But know that the conversation doesn't have to end here. The discussion can continue with us through Reddit at the subreddit My Hill to Die On, or contacting us through Twitter at My Hill to Die On, or you can reach us by email, which is, to no one's surprise, myhilltodieon@gmail.com. Finally, we upload all of our episodes to our YouTube channel, which is also named, say with me now folks, My Hill to Die On.
I just assumed you were doing plum and strawberry.
Plum and strawberry?
I'm not sure they go together.
Oh, they probably don't.
The pairing doesn't work.
You can't keep everything forever.
No, you can't.
Eventually, you got to get rid of some things.
And we've been getting rid of a lot of baby things. We've been giving some to members of our family who have young babies. And it is really nice to have the attic space back again. Let me tell you, I did not realize how much we stored. But man, the attic is emptying out, and it's quite nice.
Now you just have to think about, what are you going to put in its place?
Nothing else was there.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to be able to walk around the attic again. That would be nice.
Yeah. Let's see how long that lasts. Now, if you want me to tell you about sad games, I have a couple more I can tell you about.
No. I mean, just in editing 52.
Yeah.
It's like you kept talking about Edith Finch, and you were like, oh, keep talking about more sad games.
Yeah. Hey, that's a great game. It's a great game. But yes, it is a very sad game. Like, I will be fair and say, like, I can't even watch somebody else doing a playthrough of that game without getting all choked up during certain scenes.
No, that's okay. You don't have to do a sad game.
Come on. I can always do sad games.
I'm halfway done with the ume, and I think I'm going to cap that before I drink it by mistake again.
Well, I'm going to keep drinking that, but it just, that amount of sugar was a bit much. Yeah, hot takes on maybe Russia shouldn't invade Ukraine.
Okay, we gotta cut this stuff right.
Oh, come on.
It's gonna be old by the time this goes up.
Oh, it's
anyway.
definitely going to be old by the time. I hope it's going to be old by the time it goes up. Now, City of Sparks.
People of Sparks.
People of Sparks.
I'm gonna keep all these in. Sorry.
It's okay.
And technically, I think it has more humor than Mort, but
Yes,
that's okay.
yes, it does. I hope you are enjoying it because I know you're halfway through it.
Oh, the biggest thing I think was that I was confused at the beginning of which characters we're following because there's a lot of characters.
There are a lot of characters. You're following the Night Watch.
Yeah. I was getting confused by that secret society at the beginning. Like, am I following them? But no, they just all got melted in the chapter I just read, so we're okay now.
Yeah.
We're not following them anymore.
No, the main group you are following through all of these books, because there's other ones that follow this group, is the Night Watch.
Yep. So.
Didn't I have it written down somewhere where I had all the other stuff that I said?
No, we've never written it down.
Ah, crap. I keep forgetting to write it down.
Well, when you listen to 52, go ahead and write down what you said, because you got it pretty good in 52.
Visit myhilltodieon.com/members for more details. But the basic gist... Yeah, let's record it later.